What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Colecast. I am Francis. I am one of the hosts. I am here with the ever lovely Nathan Brandt, and this is episode
Evan,
42.
Can I get some claps?
Get some applause in there for Nathan.
Applause. Do you have an applause button?
I think so.
Yeah, there we go.
That's
there we
what
go.
I needed that today. Thanks, Evan.
Evan has not resolved. He's resolved to. What's the word I'm looking for? I don't know. Evan has started putting the episode on a piece of paper and has the episode number for me. So
That's because we make grilled cheese at night.
All right. So, welcome back to Coal Ironworks Colecast. I am Francis Stroll. We're just going to we're gonna leave the laughter in, and you guys won't know why we're laughing. I am Francis. I am one of the hosts. I'm here with Nathan. Cue the applause again. I'm here with Nathan. There it goes. And today we're going to talk about some things going on in our world, which might also be going on with your world. But
Cheese shortage.
There's a cheese shortage? I haven't heard about this.
What?
Is there a cheese shortage?
I don't know.
Is this one of those like?
All the cheese at my house is moldy.
Is this like one of those I'm so random jokes, like having a mustache on your purse in 2008, or like being obsessed with bacon?
You're just proving my earlier statement. Just read the paper.
You're in a mood today.
You have no idea.
Right. So, first thing we're going to start out with is either last week or the week before. Time is a construct of yeah, so
Society.
it's not real. So we did a giveaway, which was the first thing you ever used power forging equipment to make, and I am so excited about this week's winner because I helped him do it. So I went out to Warriors Way, I think last year. It had to be last year. Might have been the year before. Didn't have to be last year, but it was potentially last year. And what we did was we were selling 1045 and a handle for like $20, and then you got to go in and make a hammer with either myself. Greg actually was there at the time helping us, even though he didn't work here. Nigel, Brett was helping us out. So we had a bunch of people helping us out that day, and one of the guys that I got to make a hammer with was Danny, whose last name will remain a question to all of us. We don't know his last name, and I kind of don't want to know.
Do it again.
Do It Again is his last name. So this is Danny's first hammer that we forged, and this is not a hammer that somebody else kind of forged for you while you took a couple swings at the drift. He did this all himself. While he was in the heat, he asked for instruction, and then he went and did it. He very much wanted to be the one to do it. So I think he did a great job with that. He also has a background in engraving.
Yeah, the engraving is beautiful.
Firearms and jewelry and pretty much anything soft. So one of the things that we did when we made that
Firearms
was
soft?
No.
the part that he engraves is.
Is it?
I don't know. It has to be to engrave, right?
No.
I don't know. I don't know anything about engraving. If you think I don't know anything about like blacksmithing, I know nothing about engraving at all. Probably know more about pottery. I took one semester of pottery in high school.
Pottery. You can engrave pottery.
I actually was the only person that got an A in my class.
Congratulations,
Yeah.
Francis. Can we get that applause again, Evan?
Everybody else took it as a throwaway class, but I thought it would actually
Good
be
job,
fun.
Francis. Do you still have it? Should our next giveaway be pottery centered?
There's like 5 or 6 projects we did.
Well, you know what I
The
mean.
one my mom probably still has, you had to make a shoe. Did you ever take pottery?
No.
I feel like it's common in pottery classes. You have to make a shoe, and
Why do you feel that way?
because I've talked to other people that said they also had to do the same thing in their pottery class. But mine was moccasins and girl jeans were popular for scene kids at the time. And so I made a moccasin.
Yes. I remember the moccasins.
Yeah.
Let's bring that back.
Dude, they're comfy. I've got some camo ones I would wear in public. But I made a moccasin, and I decided to do that because it looked way easier, and it was. And my mom probably still has it. Yeah, I got an A for the semester. Like I said, everybody else took it as a throwaway class and would goof around, and I don't remember who my teacher was, a single interaction with that teacher at all. I literally only remember making the moccasin.
You know what? The first girl to ever broke up with me right before my art class, and we were doing pottery that day. Thanks for bringing that up.
Thought you were going to say the first girl to ever break up with you was a moccasin.
A snake?
Yep. That was the joke. All right. So anyway, back to Danny. He's the important one here. Danny is going to be winning a coffee mug from courtesy of Coal Iron Works. Specifically, this is a design from Evan. And Evan also wanted to do the giveaways, so he will be paying for the coffee mug. But good job, Danny. He also came out and took a make it stick class with us. I don't know. School's not that way. It is that way. Took make it stick with us. Did his first, I believe it was his first billet of forge welded steel. I'm really excited to see what he does with it because he has a background in a few different things. And he doesn't look at things through the same eye as I want to make a knife out of it or I want to make this out of it. He kind of looks at something and it allows it to tell him what it's going to be. So
can we just
they are coming back next weekend to make knives out of their Damascus billets.
Can we just say that Charlie has done an amazing job of getting the school set up? I went out yesterday to forge some stuff, and every tool I needed was there. Everything was laid out beautifully.
It was already there. He didn't set it up.
The anvil in the center of the room is like a 700-pound forged Austrian pattern or whatever. Everything's just, he's just such a swell guy.
Yeah, he kind of just.
Producer Evan, can we get some applause?
Evan did all the legwork. Evan did all the legwork. Evan, can you give yourself some applause?
Yeah,
Evan did the legwork.
If you press the button twice, will it play over itself?
I don't know.
Can you loop it?
I think it just
over?
restarts.
Oh,
it just stops.
Bummer.
That's okay.
This is going to be an uplifting episode.
Yeah, let's do that because I'm negative. So, congratulations, Danny.
Woo!
Excited.
Yay, Danny.
Excited to have you around and have you involved. I'm sure I'll see you in a couple days here at Warriors Way, which this episode will be out after Warriors Way, so I can talk about it. I haven't been yet, but Warriors Way has a new building. It is no longer in a storage unit facility. They have dedicated electric run. They have parking. They have some acreage for camping events. They have actually, as far as I know, at least 2 buildings. And the main school is going to be built on what used to be horse stalls. And they're going to have a little suite for instructors. They've got all kinds of plans. It's super cool. David is kind of a solemn guy, but I see a twinkle in his eye when he talks about it. And it's really nice seeing him excited. Jeff's always excited, and it's very encouraging.
Jeff could power the entire East Coast.
Oh, yeah.
With his positive energy.
Absolutely. But when you see David excited, it's like, all right, it touches a special place, you know? So I'm excited to go out there this weekend. Myself, Greg, and Charlie will be going out this weekend. So as you're listening to this, it was the previous week. We've told you for weeks to come out to this event because it's going to be super fun. But I foresee us making some hammers. I believe Rob Huff posted about being out there. Mm-hmm. He's going to be making some hammers with people. Last time Steve King came, Steve knows how to make stuff and cannot be squeezed into a box. So
no, because he's a giant.
He's a giant. That's true. But we have the honor and the privilege of working with Warriors Way, and they are top-notch human beings, and we're excited to go out there and figure out how we can support them more. So that's what we'll be doing this weekend. New building. I'll talk about it more next week after I actually visit and know what to talk about. So next up on the docket is Cole Ironworks news and events. What do we have going on? On April 18th, we have a San Mai Spear class. What is happening in that San Mai Spear class, producer Evan? Obviously a San Mai Spear.
Yeah, San Mai Spear.
Right?
Yeah. So Mr. Emiliano Carrillo is coming out, and we're going to be forge welding a spearhead and a socket together.
Very hard.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of intricate processes going on. Yeah. It is a 3-day class, so bring your sleeping bag.
If anybody ever takes classes here, one thing I want to say publicly, we get the question a lot, is where to stay. So let me give you 2 little insider trading secrets. One, if it's nice weather out, if you're coming in the summer or early fall, stay at the campgrounds. Mound State Park is actually beautiful. And so the mounds are ancient burial grounds that we have just made a national park around. And there is, if you're into that type of thing, there's a lot of like history and ghost hunting and that kind of stuff that goes on there.
Great fishing too.
Moderate fishing.
It's fine.
It's you can
There's
can
fish in the water.
There are fish. That's how I would say that. There are.
Can you eat the fish?
You cannot eat the fish.
Oh, I don't get fishing without eating the fish.
I agree. That's why I don't fish there. You fish in.
Why
Andy's,
can't you eat the fish?
in Rob's Pond? Because in the 70s and 80s there was so much pollution happening in the White River, which is our main river, that it has affected pretty much all the water around Anderson.
GM.
I don't think it was GM. I think it was one of the other companies. There was Guide was just GM, but
Right.
Guide Lamp. There was a company in Alexandria called Sloss, and they made the fiberglass patches that you see on screen doors, like when you open it up, the screen section, and they were not filtering any of their smokestacks or whatever, you know.
Yeah, as they did in the 70s.
Yeah. So when I grew up, everybody had asthma. Like I didn't have an inhaler, and I was the weird kid. And I think that was just kind of like what people did in the 70s and 80s, and we're still figuring it out. At one point, I believe it could have been the state, but I believe it was in the country. The White River was the most polluted river in either the country or
Producer
the state.
Evan, will you please pull up? It came. What was it? It came from
The Black Lagoon.
Pit 9. Guide. So when they demolished Guide, which was a massive machine shop. The machine shop was so huge that they had a central coolant tank.
Are you talking about the sludge monster?
The sludge monster. And so they found in the pit, I think it says, if you type in like Guide, Anderson, it came from Pit 9. You should find it. But they found a living creature in the coolant tank. It came from Plant 9. I'm just saying. They found something in there, and they don't know what it was. And they don't think no one put it in there. So this is just up the street.
Gross.
It's a little scary.
They also found, was it Nephilim, Evan, in mounds? Did they find Nephilim bones?
What?
Unofficially.
Unofficial. Yeah, like going back to like the 60s and 70s, there's news reports of like archaeological digs where they found what they believe are Nephilim bones. I couldn't remember exactly what kind of creature it was, but I think it's Nephilim. Yeah. So Anderson's got some weird history.
So come and stay.
Yeah.
In the Nephilim
come hang out.
burial grounds.
Come take that class. The other thing going on is April 26th, we have Bob Rankin is doing a hammer in now. This one comes with some stipulations. Bob is hosting a hammer in at his personal shop. This is not a come and do a swap meet. This isn't like a SOFA or a CBA. This is you have to message Bob to come. He posted it on his Instagram. I hope we're okay for sharing, but all the Midwest guys and gals that know Bob We all love Bob. I've referred to Bob as Michigan Steve and kind of the Steve Schwarzer thing.
Oh, okay.
Because everywhere you see Bob, you see 5 or 6 kids that have clung to him. Mm-hmm. And less about necessarily what he's making or what he's doing in his shop, and more about how he's impacting the community, which I fully believe is more important. For a various amount of reasons, but Bob is a great dude. He bought a new house recently, built out a shop, and we couldn't make it up last year, but we're going to make it up this year. At least 1 or 2 of us are, and hang out with Bob. So if you want to go to that, message Bob on Instagram and let him know, hey, I'm interested in coming into your hammer in. That way, if 900 people respond, he can start shutting it down. You know? Yeah. We don't want that, but we definitely want people to show up and let Bob know that he's loved, that people enjoy spending time with him, and that what he does for the community is valuable. So check that out on April 26th. And I'm not going to tell you where, because if you know Bob, you know where he lives. I feel like that's kind of the secrecy thing there. Yeah, you got to ask Bob.
Yeah.
Ask Bob. Have you seen Bob? Never mind. A few people got that reference. All right, so we have it on here that we're just going to jump in for the question of the week and then the main discussion or whatever. But I kind of want to flip it, because one of these main discussion points I think I want to talk about longer, and then the audience questions I want to cover for shorter.
Sure, so, man. Do what you want.
I will. You're the producer, and I'm the host for a reason. So we're gonna jump out of place here. But the main discussion point that we were going to talk about is, what was the first thing you ever forged and what it taught you? So typically what we do is Nathan and I know that the podcast is going to go somewhere, and then about 2 minutes before we start recording, we start talking about something, and that's then what we talk about instead of what we planned. But I think this one actually goes along with more of what we've talked about. So the outline that Evan wrote, which is, I don't know if I should read it, but it's reflecting on humble beginnings, learning curves, and forging projects that shape a blacksmith's journey. This is a great way to share stories, connect with beginner smiths, and highlight how far the community has come. So I think you have a very interesting perspective or story, maybe not perspective, but a very interesting story that we really don't talk about a lot. We kind of talk about you getting into blacksmithing more so a couple years before coal iron. When you moved to Indiana, you got married, you wanted to start an Indianapolis tool company. We hear about that a lot. You reference when I was 13 years old in blacksmithing, when I was, whatever. But I don't think we've ever had like kind of an expose or in-depth look at your first time blacksmithing, what you did for the first few years, because it was, very on your own.
Oh, yeah.
And I think a lot of these guys that are listening to the podcast, and a lot of these guys even that maybe do it full time, are kind of in a corner by themselves, where I have the luxury of, if I want to do something, Charlie is going to be in the school until 6:00 most nights. And I have a buddy out there. Me and Evan did a bunch of forging when I first started. Me and Logan did a bunch of forging when I first started. So, I have been in the forge alone, but I have this cool benefit of pretty much being able to rely on having another hand out. So, or not another hand out, but another hand available. So what was the initial thing that you saw that sparked your interest in forging?
So I remember it all like it was yesterday. I went in my backyard. I grew up on a farm in Ohio, and I loved to play with fire. I would burn things constantly. Mm-hmm. I would make napalm and set trees on fire.
I was going to say, as little boys do, and like we should bring back little boys being allowed to play with a little bit of fire, and then you said napalm. I was like, all right, this is like,
I don't know. I loved, I grew up, we would have huge parties and bonfires growing up all the time. And I just loved, I was seduced by fire. And so I was in my backyard trying to make tar or pitch or something. So I was collecting sap from trees and boiling it down in a half 55-gallon drum, trying to make pitch to make arrows. And it wasn't working. And I don't know how I got from that, but the next memory I have is I had that 55-gallon drum set up, and I had burned down a bunch of wood, and I was blowing into a galvanized pipe to get the fire hot.
Super healthy.
And pulling out some rusty, I'm on a farm, so there's just scrap metal everywhere.
Yeah.
You just walk over and pick some up. And I was hammering it on a rock with my dad's claw hammer. Specifically my dad's claw hammer, and he didn't want me to have it. But I just was playing, right? Like, I was a kid. I was like 10. And so I did that for a little bit, and I would go out every single evening by myself. And I would just like beat on metal. I'd heat it up in the fire, I'd blow in the pipe. Don't suck in on the pipe. And, I would just be, and I just thought it was the coolest thing ever. And I had grown up around tractor shows and rebuilding steam engines and antique hit and miss engines with my grandpa. My dad was a fabricator and had been my whole childhood. So I would go and visit his shop, and, he'd let me weld my name onto a piece of sheet metal. And so I had always been around metal. I'd been building things since I was a kid. My mom has pictures of me as a kid, building tractors out of scrap, and I would build huts in the woods and all that kind of stuff. But, we didn't have a computer. We had a wall phone with a cord and
your house was so far out there that in the 90s and early 2000s, internet wasn't even an option.
It wasn't even an option. And, we didn't get cable until I was like 15. So, I would go into my grandparents' house after school and stuff and watch Cartoon Network for an hour. But I didn't really have access to information. And my grandpa would take me out. We would fix machines. He taught me how to use an angle grinder when I was 6. I remember holding the angle grinder like this, and it had a paddle switch. And I was just like, it was horrifying. But
I still look like that when I use angle grinders.
So, I was around it, and so I started playing with it as this fun thing. It was an experiment. I was trying to do something. And when my grandpa heard that I was doing that, he took me out to my great uncle's house. So my grandma's dad, my great grandfather, helped found Wagnerware. He wasn't a founding member, like he wasn't on the board, but he was like the lead. I don't know what his term, but he would make the molds. He would monitor the material that's being melted. He would help pour, and even after a lot of that stuff. So
he's kind of like a plastic dyes guy.
Well, he was plastic dyes guy.
You said he made the molds and poured the
sand casting in a cupola furnace. Anyway,
I'm confused as to what process we're talking about.
That's fine.
Ill-informed.
So he would make the sand molds. And after the process was mechanized, he would go in and keep things running and all that. And that led to, after he left Wagnerware, which my family has a sick Wagnerware collection. Let me just be the first to tell you. So he would go back in and help. But he ended up building like I don't know how tall it was. It was in a 2-story old barn in his backyard. He built a massive, I'm going to say, I don't know how you say cupola. I feel like I'm saying it weird. A cupola. It's a cupola. It's a freaking tall foundry, and you fill it with metallurgical grade coke and scrap.
Cupola.
Okay? I don't think you're right. Anyway, you fill it up to the top. So you're talking about, 12, 14, 16 feet. and then you start the burn, and it's got big blowers, and so that melts down, and then it you tap it pours out dross, you tap it pours out good cast iron, and then you make molds, and he continued casting on his own just as a hobby. So anyway, when he passed, my mom's brother got a lot of that equipment, and so my grandpa took me out. We got some tongs, and I got a huge pile of coke that, like, the best fuel I have ever seen in real life. Like, this stuff burned white. Like, it was so clean, there was no smoke. I mean, this stuff was like magic. Cupola.
She also sounds wrong. She also sounds wrong.
So I took that back. I got a 55-gallon drum for my dad's shop. I cut a hole in the side. So again, for me, blacksmithing was problem solving. Mm-hmm. So I didn't have any inputs of information, really. I just would scrounge what I had. And this became so vital later. So I built a 55-gallon drum. And at this point, roughly around this time, I got the access to the internet. So we had, like, the modem, every time you had to log in, and then you couldn't use the phone, so you could only use it for short periods of time. So I had seen on iForge Iron or Anvil Fire. So there was iForge Iron, Anvil Fire, Beautiful Iron. I think those were, like, that was it.
I really was only on iForge Iron. And that was after I met you. That wasn't.
Yeah. So,
when I was young.
But I had gotten a little bit of exposure to, like, what other guys were doing. So what I did was I built a 55-gallon drum forge. I didn't have a fire pot, and I built this. I didn't have electricity out there because I was in the back 40, and so I built this massive wind sail that would funnel the wind into the fire because I didn't want to blow in it anymore. And that kind of worked with the coke. Mm-hmm. It was enough. So it would catch the wind and keep the fire going just enough to, like, heat it up to red. So I was experimenting and playing and trying stuff, and it was just 100% like, sorry, it was fun. And my sister started dating this guy, and he said that he blacksmithed. And I am so sorry, I forget his name, but my sister's boyfriend's stepdad was part of the SOFA, Southern Ohio Forge. And every time I see him, I know his face. I can never remember his name, but I can see his face. And he generously offered to take me to the SOFA meeting that month. And so he picked me up and took me, and I walked in, and I've mentioned this before. I walked into that shop. I'm working outside with a 55-gallon drum with a wind-powered blower, and literally I had a rock and a claw hammer. But I was in heaven. I was having a blast. Mm-hmm. And I was just playing and experimenting and seeing how metal moved and what, you can't forge this material. You can bend stuff and all that.
I get sick when I forge this.
And so he took me, and I remember walking in and the coal smell, and they had the coal forges, and there was a power hammer and anvils and any tong that I could need to hold the material. I was just like, oh my gosh, because I had like one pair of tongs. Mm-hmm. And I would just reforge it to hold whatever shape object I was going to be forging that day. And this was just all fun. It was just all super fun, super, it was just fun. Anyway, so him and I forged a tomahawk together. I was just like, this is the first, like, real thing that I forged. We took a ball peen hammer and forged it into a tomahawk and handled it, and he helped me go through all the process. And I was just like, I felt like I was drinking from a fire hose, because you got to remember, there was no forged in fire. This was not normal. Mm-hmm. Nobody knew what I was talking about. And I didn't have any mentors. My grandpa gave me some stuff. My dad didn't know that I had taken tools out of his toolbox, And so I think the thing was, and this is something that I am really energized to offer my kids. It's like, go outside and play.
Right.
Figure it out.
Scrape your knees.
we have a scrap yard in the back of our property that's been collecting since probably 1920. I don't know, maybe even before then. We found bottles back there from 1890. And so the kids will go out and pull stuff out, and our yard's a mess and all that stuff. But I remember pulling that stuff out and playing was the development of all of this stuff.
Right. There's a shift in, we'll say, society where I came home from school and I would eat my ramen or whatever my snack was after school, and then I was outside. It didn't matter if it was 30 degrees outside. I was outside with gloves on. Yeah. I was very much an outside kid. And you didn't go into other people's houses because then you couldn't see when the street lights came on, or, there was all kinds of things you had to figure out there. But I do feel like I lived in a neighborhood that was very, there was a lot of kids. The bus stopped at every corner. You never saw kids outside playing ever. Yeah. And, I know my nephew plays in his own yard. And I don't know how many friends he has in the neighborhood, if it's just not a very youthful neighborhood. But I do feel like there's a stigma now of outside kids. And maybe I just didn't realize it because I was a kid at the time and I was the outside kid.
Yeah, right.
But
there was a stigma then too. Yeah.
But I do think that they're you can tell the kids that didn't fall off their bicycle. And you can talk to adults that have had we're going here for this and we're going to that and we're doing this, that didn't have that time to just do things and experiment and have fun. I remember, oh God, I got in so much trouble. I don't know how to describe him. He's a friend of the family. Bought me a new blue bicycle. I didn't like the color blue. And so I went into the garage and I found paint, and didn't matter what kind of paint it was. And I used what are those long, they're really long and really short brushes. I don't know what they're called. You use them for drywall.
Like a broom?
No. It's
I see you outside with a broom just painting.
Pretty much that size. It's this long and this short, and I'm dipping it in only can get one part of the brush in the gallon, so I have to dip it and then flip it up and let it drip down, and I paint my bike with this, and it's exactly what you imagine. It looks like you just packed clay around it. Yeah. I was like, I don't like this either, so I went and found a Dremel. And I'm just popping Dremel bits off, and they're flying all around. And then I was like, okay, this isn't working. I'm out of Dremel bits. One of the two. And I go and I grab a little carving knife, and I'm trying to carve the paint off, and I cut my thumb wide open. And I was so afraid to tell my parents because they would know I was in the garage with dad's stuff that I just went inside and wrapped it in paper towel really low key. And then at dinner I sat like this and pretended I wasn't hungry so that I could keep the paper towel on it. But let's just be honest, my nephew's never going to experience that. He's not left to be wild. I think that a little bit of being feral and a little bit of going out and playing and scraping your knees and cutting your thumb open, and I think that's important.
For me, it was the and I didn't know this at the time, but looking back, it was the problem solving. It was I want to heat metal up, and you just okay, there's a barrel, there's a pipe sticking out of the ground over there. I bet I can make it work.
Yeah,
and it's hard to let your kids play with fire. So kudos to my parents for being we trust him.
Well, they had other stuff going on.
Yeah. So, I think there's just this what it built for me was confidence that I could do stuff, because it's I can figure this out. And that's my answer to anything now.
Yep.
I'm remodeling my kitchen. Should I be? Well, who's to say?
You've done it before, out. And you figured that out.
Well, yeah, but it's just that willingness to try. And I think one of the things that didn't deter me from it was I didn't ask for permission. I didn't get on a forum and say, hey, will this work? Mm-hmm. I hate when people do that.
Yep.
Because don't do that. If you're starting a project, you should have the confidence to say, I can figure this out.
Even more than I hate that. I wouldn't say I hate that. I get I see those messages and it's well, just go do it. Figure out if it works. But even more than that, I hate the people that get on that are well, that clearly won't work because you're not using a 3/8 taper on that. And it's
right. Just go try.
Let them try. Exactly.
Right.
Let them fail a little bit.
Yeah.
Even if you like push them in kind of the right direction.
Yeah.
But don't give them all the details.
Right.
I hate when things Logan's bad at this. When you have to have everything perfect.
Yeah, but he'll even
try.
He'll even tell you that one of the things that he's learned working here is he should go try.
He admits to it.
And he's doing it now, you know, with
yeah.
his knife making stuff. It's like he has spent so long trying to get everything dialed in before he starts. And he'll say now, nope, I got to go. Like, yes, have a framework for success, all that kind of stuff. Okay. But it's like when you're 10, you're so free to go. And
you don't need a framework of success because you have a safety net of mom and dad gave me a bed and food.
But you also don't have an ego of I need this. You know, like I think that trips me up now. It's like when I'm trying something, it's like, well, can I do this in a way that I can be proud of what I'm ending up with?
Does it match the brand?
Right.
Is this on brand?
Is this really, you know, when I was a kid and I'm trying to figure it out, it's like everything that I did looked like garbage. I mean, that's kind of how you start.
Yeah, it's expected.
But it's also like, because I didn't have any ego in it, I just wanted to heat up some metal and beat on it. I just wanted to make some pitch to stick. You know, it's like I didn't go ask for any help. And I think that was really important for me because I didn't have that community around me. And yes, I went to SOFA later on and had a little bit. So sorry, guys. I don't know how to make this correct. And that was helpful to, you know, it gives you a leg up, but it also starts this process of like contributing to self-consciousness, because once you get a community of people around you that are also doing it, it lends to this like idea of what I'm doing comparable to theirs. Is it good enough to show them? Is it, you know, and you start looking for approval. And as much of a leg up as it can be, the experimentation up front with no ego and no self-consciousness was way more impactful to the long-term trajectory. So, you know, I still to this day, it's like I am so much more comfortable in my home shop by myself experimenting because I don't have anyone giving me their feedback. It's like, I don't want your feedback.
Yeah.
I want to play.
Yeah.
I want to try. And, you know, so many things that I've done don't work. Like I was out yesterday evening forging in the shop, and everyone kind of knows at this point to not come talk to me when I'm doing that, because I don't want your feedback. I don't want your advice. Like I don't care if I'm doing it wrong.
Yeah.
I want to try. And so I was forging stuff, and I've learned when I'm trying something new, I'm forging something that I've never forged before, I leave a piece of the parent metal in the exact size so that if it works, I have all my information.
Yeah.
Then I'll forge one, and it always fails. My first one, actually, what usually happens is my first one's great, and then my second one, third one, and fourth one are like unmanageably bad. Yeah. But yesterday, the first one was total failure. That's fine. I set it right next to the parent stock. So I've got a trajectory. My second one, I'm getting the form I was looking for. Okay, so I'm going to keep that. I'm going to go grab some more parent metal and get myself back up, because it kind of helps my brain storyboard what the process looked like. I remember what dyes I used and that kind of thing.
Oh, you love a good storyboard, whiteboard.
Lots of chalkboards, whiteboards.
You love a good board.
My wife was like, how can I help you be better at like communicating what you're doing, what the schedule's going to look like this week, this day? So I was like, yeah, just like give me a big chalkboard. So she bought like this little whiteboard and put it on the wall. It's like, sorry, no. So I went and got this massive antique chalkboard and mounted it on the wall in our dining room. Oh, absolutely. A, it's cheap. B, it's cool. You know, it's got to be on brand.
On brand.
And that's not even ego talking.
That's on brand.
That's just, okay, it's 100% ego talking. That's so anyway, I got this huge chalkboard and put it up, and we kept schedule. I need it to be big. I need to see it. I need to spread out and let my wings fly. So anyway, back to your original question. That was the trajectory. I was making pitch, then I started. But for me, it's very personal. I don't like forging with other people. I don't like it because it was so personal when I started. Mm-hmm. It's like, I need to get in that flow state and do the stuff, and then I can do really cool stuff. But if I have people around me and we're like brainstorming on how to do something, I hate that. I don't want to brainstorm. I want to do it and test it out as I go.
I agree with that. I wouldn't go so far as to say that I hate forging with other people. I do like forging with other people, specifically if they know what they're doing and I'm learning.
Oh, I hate that. I hate because then they'll tell me how they do it.
Right. No.
And I don't want to know how they do it.
So what I like is I like somebody who, and the last time Logan and I made tongs, which was I think the first time probably, it was very here's how I have it set up. This is what we're gonna do. And then when I would say,
Sorry, I'm having a straight crisis over here.
You all right?
I tried to put my other leg up and
all right.
Didn't go as planned.
Got caught on the wire.
Sure.
So it was like, okay, this is what we're gonna do, and this is how I have it set up. And when I would say, well, what would happen if I did it this way? I think I've learned how to phrase things with Logan where instead of saying, I think I'm going to do it this way, and him being like, well, it's not going to work. It's, creating the conversation of like, what would happen if I did it this way? And I do like that. I do like, I obviously got into forging because you need somebody to help you forge weld. And you need a striker,
right?
I really like that. That's my favorite.
I think
turn my brain off and have somebody else you're controlling the fire.
Yep.
You have the tongs. You tap something.
I do love that.
Swing.
Yeah,
that's it.
I do like that. But when I'm forging my own work, mm-hmm. I don't want anybody. I want to be with the metal and my own process. I don't want any distractions.
Yeah.
But I love when we do the IBA stuff and the guys are all here and they just need somebody like big man swing hard.
That's my favorite.
100%.
Turn my brain off. The thing that sucks is I have terrible vision. The worst vision. Like I'm so legally blind that like it does take. You see Rob do it, and you see all these guys come out and they're like, "Well, I can't go into it with that much confidence because I visually don't have that much confidence."
You can't see the bright glowing piece of metal.
It's so I have problems with depth perception. I have problems with like the actual clarity.
That's a killer with a sledgehammer.
Exactly. Like I, in all reality, probably shouldn't drive. like if we're just being honest. And this, you've worn my glasses. Like I once
I can see through your glasses and your head.
It goes into like right here.
Right. Yeah.
I dated a girl once that didn't believe how blind I was. And I said, yeah, like wear my glasses until you get a headache. And it took maybe 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And I mean, she was down for the night. like she was like cooked. But yeah, so anyway, I do like forging with people.
Sure.
But like you said, it has to be under I would rather go out and tinker and find new ways to do stuff on my own. Mm-hmm. But if I have something that I really want to know or get done, there's a difference between figuring out like a fun process and like, oh, I really want to learn how to make these bolt jaw tongs. Mm-hmm. Then I would go to Logan and say, hey, let's make these together. But if it was like, I just kind of want to see, I already know how to make the bolt jaw tongs and I kind of know the tong process, but I've never made hammer eye tongs. Mm-hmm. That's where I would step into the forge with the confidence like you talked about and say, okay, I've already made these 3 kinds of, that's where I like to take over and forge by myself. And then I also like just swing here, which is, just reminds me of my buddy Nathan.
I think, I don't know. I get it. And we host a lot of events here and I love that the community comes together and we do projects together. And I think it's a great opportunity, especially for people like I used to be, where you don't have access to a ton of tools. Mm-hmm. And, I remember literally going in the house. I was maybe 11 years old. Mm-hmm. I remember running in the house, weeping. And my dad was like, "Are you good, boy?" And I was like, "No, like, everything I try fails, because I didn't have electricity. I didn't have any tools. And I was actually trying to make things now. And I was so defeated. And so then that was a great opportunity where, I could go on a go on a monthly meeting to Sofa and try again with some tools, right? It's like, okay, I've already tried this with what I have. I cannot, I can't make a 10-pound sledge in my backyard with my dad's cold chisel and a claw hammer. Turns out,
as one would unexpectedly figure out.
But you're able to come in here and punch an eye in 1 minute, right? Like, I can get forging an axe down with proper preparation to about 4 minutes. Like stuff like that, where you have access to tooling and equipment, and there is knowledge available where when you bump up against a problem, there can be some back and forth. And I think for some people that's really wonderful. I personally want to be alone while I go through the discovery process. I think it's because I am very empathetic. And so when someone gives me their perspective, I want them to feel like I value it.
Yep.
Even if I don't want it.
You do. Yeah.
And
this is accurate.
And so then they're like, well, I think you should do it this way. And I don't want them to think that their input, it doesn't matter. And that's so much weight for me. It's like, I'd rather just be alone.
I can watch, after knowing you this long, I can watch when somebody's like, hey, have you ever thought about it doing this way? I can watch you. If the answer is yes, I have. It's so simple. It's like, yeah, I've tried it. I like this better. You might give a brief explanation. But if they say, hey, have you tried doing it this way? And the answer is no, you do this weird thing where you're like, well, I've never really thought about that. And you almost have like this kindergarten teacher voice. And it's 100% to like you said, it makes them feel valuable. It makes them feel like there. And I know in your head, you're like, never going to try it that way. Even if it works, I'm not going to try it just on the foundation just out of you.
Spite, which is so ironic because it's like I'm trying to be like value their opinion, but inside I'm just like filled with rage and spite. I don't know. But it's just like I need that space to be creative. For me.
Well, and I think that's so for everybody gets into blacksmithing for different reasons. For me, I got into blacksmithing because my buddy wanted to do it, and I thought girls would like it. I thought girls would be really impressed with it.
Turns out girls aren't.
They hate it.
It's dirty.
I have never had a single girl be like, oh, that's super cool that you do that.
Well, and, like Malin, like, I'll go out and I'll be really dirty and sweat, especially when we were younger and I was much more attractive. I would go in the house and I'd be, I'd like strutting, I'm all filthy. I worked hard. And she's like, I like the idea of that. Please go take a shower.
Now that I've seen it, take care of it. That's exactly what I've run into is like, send me the picture. Don't ever let me see you in that manner.
Never try to kiss me when you look like that. Yeah.
But I think a lot of people get into stuff for different reasons. Obviously, getting into it with you because I got to spend time with somebody that, I wanted to create a relationship with it. And slowly someday I hope we have a relationship of some sort.
Yeah.
But
I didn't name a kid after you or anything.
Yeah. So we were keeping that a secret.
No, we weren't. Your whole family knew when
we
just moved you in. Yeah.
That's why
your sister-in-law was walking Isla around and she's like, "This is Francis's namesake."
Yeah. Someday maybe I'll have a real one.
And I was like, how did she know that? That was such private information.
Yeah. I only told my mom.
Now we're blasting it on the podcast.
Great. Awesome.
All 100 people.
Anywho, so some people get into it for various reasons, whatever. I think for you, the creativity and the fun and the exploration is part of it. What I'm finding now, the more that I get into and when I see something that's like, oh, I'd like to try that, I don't care whatsoever about the process. I love the finished product. I don't care what the finished product looks like. I like using the finished product and the functionality.
Interesting.
So I think I talked about it with Dave when I interviewed him about AI. But creativity to me is, it's not drawing, it's not art, it's, poetry, like those things I by definition.
Didn't you write a lot of poetry? You seemed like a guy that wrote a lot of poetry.
I didn't do poetry.
In his teens.
I did journaling.
Oh.
Like I would read books and journal. I would almost commentary. I would do social and research.
So literally
commentary.
what you're doing right now.
Literally what I'm doing right now, except with a pen and paper, and nobody cared. Cool, buddy. This 16-year-old has an opinion on Freud. All right. So I like the functionality is really what gets me is, talking to Kurt is really inspiring because he has kind of convinced me that a gate with just some posts and some pickets is functional. Mm-hmm. But you really like, say Francis Whitaker gates. You really like those gates. Well, what's different about them? They both open and close. Mm. It's like, oh, frick, I do like creativity. Mm-hmm. But I do value function over creativity in that kind of aspect. So,
let me jump in there for a second. So I grew up in a family of artists. Mm-hmm. So half of my family are musicians and no, that's not true. A little bit of our family is musicians. Half is farming, half is painters. Mm-hmm. I have a lot of painters on my dad's side.
But she put Pepsi cans in all of her paintings?
Oh my gosh, I had no, it wasn't Pepsi cans. So my grandma was a prolific watercolor painter, and she would put a secret cross in every painting. And so you have to. So we would spend our family gatherings. All the kids would go, and looking back, it was definitely the parents being like, why don't you go find the crosses, and so we would go through and try to find all the crosses. And so my other grandma on my mom's side, over their big stone fireplace, they had this massive painting of an Alice Chalmers 4020, which I don't think Alice Chalmers made a 4020, but that is what's in the painting.
So it's abstract?
I don't know. But there's a Pepsi can on it. And I love the painting. I grew up looking at it. I get to look at it
that's
every day
where I got
now.
the Pepsi
yes,
can. I thought she put a Pepsi can in everything.
No, there's a cross on every painting. And on that one, it's down in the front wheel. But she would go around Ohio and find derelict barns and schoolhouses and do these masterful watercolors of barns and rundown schoolhouses all over Ohio.
Yeah. There's a plethora in Ohio.
There are, and it's a real wonderful testament to like where we grew up, and I love it. And so I've got a bunch of those. I actually have a few to bring in here too, because we have very few paintings on the walls.
We should probably
thanks, Corbin. And so let me jump in on. I grew up in art. Mm-hmm. I grew up painting and drawing.
I have paintings and drawings of yours.
Yeah, and well, for a while I thought that was going to be what I did. Mm-hmm. But I think when I got a little older, so I started doing this when I was like very young. But when I got a little older and you get a little bit more cognitive about where you're going to spend your time. Those are some paintings, drawings.
Oh, Dan.
Dan Smith. So
that's
blacksmithing for me.
None of those were, the last two weren't.
So what always bugged me about paintings is that they're useless. And I get the idea that making the world beautiful is not useless, right? Like I got Malin a painting for her birthday. And it is so beautiful. And it captures the essence of what Malin and I's entire ethos of life is. It captures it in one painting. And it just like, it makes me emotional because it's like, it's beautiful, right? And it's a very old painting. Anyway, but if everything went to pot and I had no fuel for my wood stove, I would put a painting in it to keep my family warm. Okay. So there's no utility to art. And that always bugged me as a teenager. You know, you're picking the things that you're going to carry as like your ethos of life. And
you're also picking morality. Things that make you angry. Like you just want things to make you angry.
Everything makes you angry when you're full of testosterone and hubris.
This painting serves no purpose.
But blacksmithing was the first thing that I was like, I can make beautiful, practical, utilitarian art.
Right.
That blew my mind. And so when I'm thinking about what I'm going to make, and I love to just play and let the steel kind of move as it does and end up with there are a lot of funny looking hammers sitting around Coal Iron Works. But to me, I love that because you look at it and you think, I've gone to a lot of auctions and you'll find the guy's hammer, like, and it because it's old. It's super used. But it was definitely his user,
and the handle's like way newer.
Well, yeah, and it's been taken care of for a long time.
Yeah, yep.
And I have a user, and it's very obviously a user.
You can go through my hammers and see what I use.
Yeah,
for sure.
But
easy.
I think it's so fun to be able to capture the essence of a person in something as utilitarian as a hammer or an axe or some tool. Mm-hmm. And so I saw it as the only ethical expression of art was to make utility-driven, functional, purposeful art.
Right.
And so that, to me, was why I kind of gave up painting and drawing and really dove into blacksmithing, because I thought, you know what? Like, I have artistic expression inside my bones, and I need to get it out, but it needs to be for a purpose.
Right.
And so that then that was my moral, ethical dilemma being solved for my artistic expression. And so that's why I think I was cognitively, morally, ethically able to devote myself to an artistic expression.
Yeah.
Throughout those like tumultuous, who am I?
Yeah.
You know, it's like, well, I'm here to make beautiful tools. You know, and beauty is in the eye of the beholder.
Beauty
I make
is
some
in the,
funky looking stuff, but you know, so anyway, that's just to tag off of what you were saying.
Yeah, no, you're fine. That actually got us to kind of the second part. So you were, 10 years old, 11 years old, 12 years old, and you were coming in saying, Dad, everything I do is wrong, and, whatever the thing is. Shout out Chris Yackey calling me right now. Chris, I am podcasting. Can't answer your phone call. Way to go. How rude. So, I'll call you Lady Sweetie. So you go in and you say everything I do fails. I need this, whatever. You're going to.
Let me be clear. I was not going to my dad to solve my problems.
No, he's your dad. He's your support.
But I was also not asking for anything, and this is my downfall. I'd never even consider that I might need something else.
That your dad might be like, oh, this is pretty cool. We can
that he'll help me.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. I wasn't asking for help. And I think we are in a prime opportunity there that, I said earlier, I hate when people get online and ask for permission. Don't ask for permission. Go try. But when you go and you're like, hey, I'm trying to do it this way and it's not working.
Yeah.
I do that.
Yep.
And I do think that that's a powerful tool that I didn't have when I was pre-internet.
Here's a picture of my hammer. Why can't I get my fuller straight?
Exactly. Why is this not working? Yeah. I've done 100 of these, right? Yeah. Like that is an important, valuable question that the community can respond to in kind.
And they can give you 5 different ways. There's a big difference between how do I do this and what's going wrong, because you're going to get 5 different perspectives telling you, okay, well, you could set this up this way. Hey, have you checked this? Whatever the case is, maybe your top tooling is just bad and you need to make new top tooling. But there's a huge difference, like you said, between am I allowed to do this?
Right.
Which, if you're ever going to forge galvanized, it's an important question to ask because you're not allowed.
You can. I've done it. I've done it.
I
know there's a lot, but okay. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but anyway,
I'm gonna derail us. I got a whole thing.
There's a big difference between asking permission and seeking feedback. Yeah. And that's where I was kind of gonna go with you go in, you ask your dad, or you tell your dad everything I do fails. This sucks.
It's emotionally
I've been going to Sofa now, and when I go to Sofa, I have these tools at my disposal. Mm-hmm. Did you then go to your father or go to your mom and say, hey, I've been using these tools at this shop and I know which tools I'm going to use most?
No, what happened was my mom and dad loved me. And my dad's shop was cleaning out a bunch of stuff. And that Christmas he bought me, or was given, I don't know, my first anvil. Mm-hmm. And it was a little 100-pound Vulcan that was kicking around the back of their shop. And I remember I came out Christmas morning and it was sitting wrapped up in what do they call that? I can't think of it. It's a waxy paper that they do steel shipments in. Like that was what they wrapped the paper or that was like the wrapping paper on the anvil, and it was a beautiful 4-inch Wilton bullet vise, which I sold shortly after to buy a post vise because I was like, this isn't a real vise. I wish I hadn't. I didn't know. Anyway, but I got a little Vulcan anvil, and I was in awe. I threw it open Christmas morning, and I didn't even know how to articulate what I needed. But they were like, "Oh, well, these are blacksmithing tools, so this will be helpful." But no, I didn't know how to ask. I didn't know how to tell anyone what I needed.
So, you
still don't.
It's a problem, but it's a problem we can share. Sure, it's one of the few things you can share when you can't share anything else.
Sure, trauma.
So, you've been going to SOFA, not taking classes, but doing the open forges there and stuff like that. Your parents buy you just a vise and an anvil, nothing else. Okay. At what point are you deep enough into it that your parents let you build a contained forge on the property?
Well,
especially that close to the house.
I had gotten, I would go to flea markets and pick stuff up, a penny in that era. And I had gotten a little stone grinder for $12. I had gotten, I'd gotten some stuff, and I set up in the back of our barn. We had 3 barns on our property and a shed. And it wasn't even that they told me I couldn't do anything. They didn't tell me I couldn't do something. I just never asked. So I just assumed, I tried to work within the constraints that I had devised.
Yeah. I think this is acceptable.
Think this is I'll push the boundaries that I think are real. And so at this point I had a coal forge that I had gotten from my sister's boyfriend's stepdad. He gave it to me, or I bought it from him. I don't remember. I still didn't have a blower, so I had saved up and bought a leaf blower off of eBay. So I had gotten some things together, and so now I was on the backside of a shed in our yard, and I don't know how I got permission or if I just did it, but I was just like, I think I did ask, can I take this shed? And so around this time I was 13-ish, 14-ish. And so I had started traveling around with my grandpa. We would load up my tools. I would go to shows, threshing shows, hit and miss engine shows, tractor shows all over the state. And I would make S-hooks, shepherd hooks, camp tripods, all that kind of stuff. L brackets. I would make them and sell them, and then that would pay me enough to buy more steel. It didn't pay my grandpa for his fuel. Shout out to my grandpa being a tremendous support throughout all of this.
Well, that's what Pat Balls are for.
He was the ultimate, and he would take me around. We'd camp there, and I would blacksmith at the show and sell some things. That would buy me some more steel, or bought me my first angle grinder. And so then I started to develop a little bit more understanding. Throughout this whole time, I'm building workbenches and an anvil stand and a vise stand, and I'm starting to learn about making things. And I remember my dad, we heated our house with wood. So he would bring home every Saturday or every other Saturday, we would go and cut up oak runners because they would get sheet steel in rolls, and they would come on these huge oak cribs. And so we'd cut those up at the shop and load them up into the old work van that they had. And the smell of an old work van that belongs to a metal shop is a specific
particular
cigarette abrasive dust. There's just a certain aroma,
old grease,
that if there's
a little bit of old grease in there,
that would be my Sunsea aroma.
It's a weird. You get in and it smells good. It's like, oh,
it does
I love
smell
this.
good. It smells purposeful.
And then But when you start picking
art.
things out, like you said, it's like, well, that's like old man farts. Okay, well, that's cigarettes.
You don't want any of the smells independent of all the other smells.
But combined, like an old work truck smells great.
Oh, golly. Yeah, it was an old like GM panel van. So we'd load that up with oak runners. And I don't know what the oak variety was. My dad always called it pig oak. It smells bad. The wood does. But we'd take those home, and then I would have these oak 4x4s all over the farm. And so I built my shop out of oak 4x4s, but you can't drill, you can't nail, you can't screw. I didn't know that you could go to the hardware store. I didn't know until my 20s I could go to the hardware store and buy things that I needed.
Yeah.
We had a bucket of roofing nails, which you can't drive into an oak 4x4. We had some screws, so I was just figuring it out. But all of these little parts and pieces that I was learning as I was building my equipment and my tooling and my tables and stuff.
I specifically remember going to
Ace Hardware in Carmel.
And you were shocked they sold nails.
I didn't even know it was an option.
Like we went for, I can't remember what we actually went for.
We needed screws because we were using oak 4x4s that I had brought from my farm in Ohio to build our addition.
And we walked by and you picked it up, whatever, and you were like, Francis, they sell nails. Yeah.
It was screws. And it was, I can just buy screws. Was it screws? Yeah, they were Spax head. I'd never seen a Torx. They were Spax big head screws. And I was like, this will be so helpful.
And then you followed it up with like, people don't just have 5-gallon buckets of screws. And I was like, I'm sure people have just
I literally brought them with me from our farm when my parents left the farm. Yes.
But I was so confused as to why, like, you were like, you can buy screws? They still make screws? Did you know that?
It wasn't that I knew they made them. I was so broke. And I just always had enough to figure it out. And so, I just thought that's how you did things, but it's not.
I mean, it can be.
Yeah, but
Shouldn't be.
Let me tell you, it is helpful. And I just watched this beautiful documentary on YouTube about how they used to build skyscrapers. And the facade of a skyscraper was art because they would design it in such a way that they would leave gaps for the craftsmen and artisans actually installing the parts to figure it out. Oh. And so they would have to craft the details between the segments as they would piece together. I didn't know this, but they had this superstructure interior, and then the facade would hang. So like the stone facade of a skyscraper, it's not stone, it's clay tiles that they would make, and then they would hang the facade in such a way on the superstructure interior. But then you have windows that have to be placed and mounted within it. All of that was detailed by the end artisan. And so then the big changeover was when they built the UN building, because it was this big glass box. And they were saying that the UN building was supposed to be this translucent testament to, like, it's for no one people, but we didn't have the technology to build it. And so adhesives and all of that stuff basically had to be developed to be a solution for this problem. And I think it was like in the 80s, they had to rebuild it like shortly after they initially built it because the technology wasn't developed at the time. And so when they were going in to fix, like the building leaked immediately.
Yeah, well,
from all sides.
Yeah.
And so in the way they had done the glass basically funneled it into the building. And so they had to take it all apart and redo it. And the repair people were saying that there was essentially every goop and adhesive that had ever been devised had simply been slapped on this building between the glass panes to try to solve this problem. I don't know that they've necessarily, I'm sure they've come afar and away from that, but it's not that different.
Yeah.
They're still, it's mostly adhesives. But he was saying in the documentary on YouTube, I don't remember the man that did this. It was really wonderfully done. Everything he does is great. That it began to suck the soul out of the craftsmen because they no longer had to solve problems.
Oh, sure.
And I think at my young era, not knowing that I could go buy solutions to my problems taught me to think through my problems critically.
What do they call that architectural style that the USSR was? Brutalist, yes. Like if you look, so as I literally just said, like I love function, and that's the beauty to me.
Yeah.
Brutalism is the epitome of that.
Yeah,
and I
sure.
understand being depressed when you're surrounded by those buildings. Like
you're in a concrete box with a hole.
Literally a concrete box with square windows and the door.
Now, I will say I love the phrase brutalist.
Oh, it sounds so cool.
It sounds really. I haven't seen the movie. They just did a movie, The Brutalist. I don't know what it's about.
I had no idea. I wish that instead of Gothic architecture, we could call that brutalist architecture.
Yeah, right.
Let's swap.
Like it hurts to look at, but not because it's ugly.
Yeah,
it's just
because when I say I like Gothic architecture, it makes me sound kind of like I don't goth. Yeah, exactly. Like bangs, and I have stretched ears and tattoos and wear mostly black, and mom and dad still hate me. You know, like it just matches. It's on brand.
They literally just helped you move. You can't say that. You're sweet, sweet parents.
They're pretty wonderful.
Shout out to your dad. What's your dad's name? Scott.
Also Francis.
I thought his name was Scott.
That's his middle name.
But he goes by Scott.
He goes by Scott. I'm the first one to go by Francis. So I'm Francis.
You didn't, though, for an era.
6th or 7th or 8th. I believe I'm the 8th, but my dad tells me a different number every time. But all of them go by their middle name. I'm the first one to go by Francis, and it's because a cute girl in 9th grade told me she liked the name Francis, and so that's
now
why
you're
I'm
Francis
now.
So all of your decision making is based on
pretty women.
Yeah.
That's my downfall.
Okay.
There was a Francis whose name was Francis Luther, which I think sounds sweet. Francis Luther is a sick name.
That's your first son.
He hated both of those names, and so he went by Timothy. Not Tim, not Timmy. Timothy. So fun dive into my family history. So out of all of this, right, we've talked about how you kind of got set up, some of the feelings and emotions that came once you got more in depth into it.
Lots of feelings and emotions.
I think we can all agree the feelings and emotions still come out. Just about every time I'm in a forge, I get at least a feeling or some sort of tinge of emotion.
That's good.
Yeah, so I'm working on it, figuring it out. What are some of the things? And I don't want it to be what are some of the things you wish you would have known, because let people figure that out, like we just talked about.
Yeah.
But what's one of the unexpected lessons that you learned along the way that came from forging?
Well, if there's one skill that I could deposit to my children in their youth that will determine their success, it would be that they can use a hammer well. Hammer accuracy is a trait that I've been able to utilize in every single aspect of my life. You know, whether I'm working on something, I'm fixing something, I'm trying to prove to my children that I'm very good at making a nail disappear. You know, all of that stuff. Hammer accuracy is king. And I have thought, you know, my dad or my grandpa would have me when I was a youth. Again, one of those things that's like, why don't you go outside and put a bunch of nails in that board? He would give me a 4x4 and a box of nails and tell me, go hammer until you can't see wood. And I did.
He had to buy those nails, you know that? Because they sold them.
Honestly, my grandpa probably had a couple buckets of old roofing nails.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's like a fun-hearted one. I think that the willingness to try was, you know, a result of my childhood and all that. A willingness to try no matter what, and a confidence, some might say a hubris, that I'll figure it out.
I think it's you know, very easy. As somebody that knows you, and I'm not afraid to expose you on the internet, I think it is so easy to see you as, I think most people would describe you as polar, or what do they call that?
Bipolar?
Not bipolar. But I think it's easy to see you as like the sweetest, kindest, most gentle man on earth. And I also think it's very easy for people to talk to you and, well, wow, that guy's full of himself. And
good.
I think
I'm so glad.
I think it only takes 2 or 3 conversations to understand that yes, you are very kind and you are very gentle, but you also are very opinionated, and those opinions come from a root cause, and you don't just have an opinion to have an opinion. And I think that most people that are like that are very kind of domineering and over the top, and well, this is my opinion, you have to listen to what I have to say. Whereas you have no problem sharing your opinion, and in a lot of conversations, people take that as, well, now I have to shut up and listen. Whereas you will share your opinion and your experiences with anybody, and everything. The fruits of your labor are open to everybody, but it also comes from such a lack of ego that if somebody looks at you and is like, I'm not going to do it that way, what you just said is wrong. I've had people literally to my face tell me Nathan was wrong after a conversation with you, and you have never once been like, man, that guy doesn't know what he's talking about, or, anything. It's like, it comes from a very humble place where it's like, hey, these are my gifts. And if you don't take them, that doesn't bother me. Whereas a lot of people, I think, that are more in that vein are like, they would get very, you hear it all the time, like, well, the first one's free, or, I'll tell you until you stop listening, where
but
I don't think you have that.
I am passionate. I think I'm knowledgeable about what I've been doing for a long time. I had someone comment on one of my Facebook. Facebook is full of vitriol. Can we all just agree? I get none of this hate on Instagram.
Yeah, it's angry.
All of these people were making comments about how I was wearing my safety glasses wrong. And it's the first time I've ever thought, you know what? No, I'm not. And I responded with, after 21 years of doing exactly what I'm showing you in this video, I think I will be a better determiner of when I need safety glasses.
What was their point? How do you wear safety glasses wrong?
I looked over them.
Oh.
Because I couldn't see through them clearly enough, and I was trying to do a precise operation. And they're like, well, that slag is just going to go right in your eyeballs. No, it's not. That's not how presses work.
No.
Evan. Anyway.
No, Evan drops stuff on his feet. He doesn't get stuff in his eyeballs.
Anyway, the only time that I've ever gotten anything in my eyeball, it has never, not that I can remember at least, so, maybe I'm wrong. It has never been in my shop. Ever. The only time I've ever gotten anything in my eyeballs is when I come in from the shop and take my safety glasses off and wipe my face.
Yep.
And then they come out of my eyebrows and into my eyeball. Every single time.
I always forget I'm wearing long sleeves, or the fact that I have arm hair, and I try to do the safe thing and wipe like this, and that's when I get it. Yeah. All of the grinder dust and all that just falls straight into my eyes.
Well, I realized the stitching on my shoes has come apart, and I was wondering why the die grinder slivers were ending up in my big toes.
I got one in my heel the other day. I was like, man, something hurts in my heel, and I sat down and I pulled out a metal splinter.
Oh, yeah.
Inside my boot.
Yeah, right.
Wild. Didn't like it.
It's hard doing that hipster trend where you roll your pants up.
Oh,
because you got to look cool.
Yeah.
But then that fills up with all the
and then you catch yourself on fire from welding. That's what they tell me, at least.
Yeah.
Catch on fire.
It's hard to look cool.
All right, so let's start wrapping this up. I feel like we've been here for probably
hippity hoppity.
Evan, what's our time?
It is 10:50.
That doesn't tell me anything. All right.
I don't know when we started.
Okay, so
I got here. Yeah, it's like 2 hours.
Yeah,
we've really been doing this for 2 hours. All right, wrapping it up.
Yeah. So anyway, we talked about where you started out, kind of how you got a few of your beginnings, and next time we talk, we'll kind of go over your teen years, early 20s. Teen years, early 20s.
Should I bring my therapist?
So that we can. I do want to continue this kind of looking at Nathan before Coal Iron, because I think that gives us a lot of context for how this company
something
was
like
built.
This can be built. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, I want more Coal Iron Works. I want more people to start stuff.
I want to be able
haphazardly.
And this is. I want to be able to have 15 products that we have in mind. Know that. I'm not going to say this one. We decide we're not going to make that. And I want to have 5 or 6 companies that I can call and say, hey, I've got a customer that really wants this thing. We decided we're not going to make it. You know, like having that kind of.
Well, I just want to see manufacturing prowess exist. I want lots of people that makes things.
Yeah. Yeah. You know? And I want people to enjoy jobs, but I also want there to be options on the market for what people want and what they need.
I want purposeful art in the world.
If we could buy every abandoned building in Anderson.
Amen, brother. They tore most of them down. The Nicholson File Factory is gone. We didn't save it.
Yep.
That's a tragedy.
That was on our list of
to be grieved.
Yeah. It was a beautiful building.
It was, and it should still be.
Yeah. But anywho, I want if we can buy every single building in Anderson that's abandoned and even spend, and this is an egregious number to me but business is business. If we spend $100,000 rebuilding the infrastructure to the building and have things on market for small manufacturing to be able to
I don't want to buy all the buildings. I want them to be filled with
I'm not
proprietors.
I'm not saying we, you and I.
You mean as the community?
Yes, I mean as the community.
Let's fill them up. Let's get file makers back.
Right. File makers, saw makers. Dude, I was in Lowe's the other day and I was about to buy a saw. And I was like, I can't even think of like what a good saw brand is. You know, like, you want a handsaw? Who do you buy it from?
You go to a flea market.
Exactly.
When I bought my house, it was filled with old handsaws.
Yeah.
What's the technical terminology for a hand saw? What is it?
I think it's a handsaw.
Because there's like crosscut saws, and those have their own forms and functions. And then there's hand saws. What's a handsaw called, producer Evan?
There are 3 types of hand saws: rip saws, cross-cut saws, and hybrid saws.
I would probably say rip saw is what we would
there
commonly call.
There are so many names for these.
Well, I think a rip saw would be one that you use to like turn it into a board or to cut it along.
Rip goes along the grain.
Crosscut is cross the grain.
Yep.
Okay.
Hybrid does both, maybe?
Are hybrid ones the one with the kinky teeth?
They all have kinky teeth. That's how a saw works. It's called
I know that.
Frickin' guy.
But theirs are like
think you are
different kinky.
coming in here.
All right, so
picking up my saws.
Anyway, so that's a thing. We talk about American manufacturing, bring it back. Everybody move to Anderson and buy buildings.
There's not enough left. Most of them have been demolished.
Not most.
We were looking at the mill over by the railroad, and then now it's gone. Everything's gone.
When they take that down?
Like 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 11 years ago. I don't know.
You lived in Indiana
the big
11
white
years ago.
Yeah, I've lived here a long time.
Almost more of a Hoosier than a Buckeye.
Yeah.
Almost.
I don't care. Got no ego in it.
Anyway, let's get to customer questions. All right.
Oh my God, we have to be so fast.
Hey, Colecast, I've been eyeballing one of your presses for a while now. I'm still just working out of my garage with mostly hand tools and some old gear I've pieced together. But I'm starting to feel like it might be time for an upgrade. Here are my questions. What's the real game changer with using a press instead of just hammering everything by hand?
You can't make a 10-pound sledgehammer with a claw hammer and your dad's cold chisel. Sorry. Tried it.
Yeah. I would say capability.
Done. What's the next one?
You're buying the ability to expand.
You have
arsenal.
no idea what you're missing until you use a press.
Right.
If you're looking at a press, come and use a press.
Right. Schedule.
Or go to your friend's house. We have schedulable time to come and use the school. Go to coleschool.com, schedule a slot, come here and blow your own mind.
Yeah.
Now, you're going to be disappointed by some things that you thought the equipment here can do. You're going to come in here with a 150-pound billet and try to forge an anvil your first try, having never done it. That's not how it works.
Yep.
However, if you've been using hand tools, you're going to come here and punch an eye on a hammer. It used to take me by myself in my home shop, which was about 100 square feet, if that. It was about 100 square feet. It would take me roughly 2 hours of heating and hitting to punch. Now, this was before the internet, so maybe I was just bad at it. But I had a Brazil
using a ball punch.
I know I had a Brazil style punch that I had seen when Brian first posted about it on a forum 15, 20 years ago. I don't know how long ago it was. And so I ground the end of my punch to look like that with the 4 facets. And I went out, and it took me about 2 hours. Mm-hmm. And then the first time that I went and used the press that Andy built, it took me 30 seconds. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't even good yet. Nope. And it was still like you have to look at your work and say, okay, I can practically with my hand tools make a 1 pound hammer consistently. But if I want to make a large hammer, claw hammer tool, what's the phrase? You can't get to France in a rowboat or whatever, you know?
Well, does France even have a coast?
This is not a question for me, okay? I thought France was in Italy.
I think France is landlocked.
I didn't know it was its own country.
Oh, we took the map down because it made you mad.
Sorry. Anyway,
next question. Okay, I agree with everything you just said. How do you even know when you're actually ready to make that kind of investment?
When you're trying to make things that you can't.
Right.
I mean, or like a press probably isn't going to help you make S hooks. Mm-hmm. I can make S hooks
pretty dang fast.
I'd throw it out there. I'd make S hooks pretty fast. I'd race someone.
I did my S hook bottle opener at the school that I just went and did the thing at. They timed me. I could do one in 3 minutes.
Mm-hmm. I think I could do it in a minute. I'd race you.
The full bottle opener?
I'd do whatever. When you're working at that scale, and you're using an 8 pound hammer, you can send it, bud.
I was using 3.5.
Yeah.
So.
Well, don't. You know.
All right, so I would say yes. When you reach the end of your capabilities, when you get to the point where you are trying to do something and it is not your skill that's limiting you, it is your actual mechanical or physical capabilities.
I think Derek Melton's such a beautiful candidate of this. Shout out to Mr. Melton. He has exactly the tools he needs and nothing he doesn't, and he is making objects that are exactly that.
Yep.
And so, if you went to his shop and tried to make an 8 pound sledgehammer, I think you'd struggle.
Right.
Because he's got induction forges and small power hammers.
12 ton.
In a 12 ton. And
shout out Derek for buying a 12 ton.
And so I think, it's like, what are you trying to do? If you're trying to make slightly larger, like a 3 pound hammer, 12 ton's fine. For a 3 pound hammer, forging out claw, I mean, you can do a ton of work. But like, if I tried to make phantoms on a 12 ton with a hand hammer, I'd have to charge $1,500 a piece because it would take me a week.
Well, yeah, Ed Soul made I want to say it was either 8 or 9 pound splitting maul on a 12 ton.
Sure.
And he was like, dude, this took me so long to punch. Can I just come up there and use a 25 to drift it?
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, absolutely. And then he brought it up and I saw what an 8 pound maul looks like. And I was like, oh God, this is way bigger than what I thought 8 pounds was.
Yeah, no, it's a big billet. So 8 pound starting size for a maul, I think it's 3 by 1.5 by 7.
Yeah.
I just tried to.
Huge.
It's a big billet.
Huge.
Yep. 25 ton, no problem.
Yeah,
I can assure you that.
But yeah, when you have a project in mind and you get to the end of your capabilities, and
again, I think your point, it's like it's not like when you get to the point where it's literally not. It's not that it's taking too long. Mm-hmm. It's that you literally can't get there from here.
Yes.
I was looking at some of the sculptural work that I wanted to do, and it's like, I can't forge 2 by 5 on an anvil with a hand hammer. Yeah. I'm sorry. Like, maybe somebody can, but or
a team of somebody's.
Right. And, striking team. Okay. Yes. Back in the day, a double handled 50 pound sledge with 2 strong men and good accuracy and good top tools. You can do a ton of work. Mm-hmm. But in my opinion, in today's climate, it's much easier to buy equipment than to hire employees.
Right.
So, for your hobby.
So that would be what I say to there. And if I do end up getting one, what is the best way to keep it running smoothly? This just says smooth. It should be smoothly. In a smaller setup like mine.
Did you just critique someone's verbiage?
Yeah, I don't get the chance often to correct someone's English.
So I run my machines pretty hard. run my machines very hard, and I do things that when I break something, I think, yeah, that makes sense.
Yep.
But, I have access to an entire CNC machine shop and equipment that most people in their home shops, like if I had my shop at home, I have no mill, I have none of that stuff. I am more careless than the average person would be because it's like if I snap something, I come here and we fix it. Yep. But on my press, I have learned that it is very important to keep everything well lubricated. So oiling the slide every use. Every time I go out to the shop, I turn the machine on, I get my settings in my DPCs, I go through and I lube. And that's true of my Anyang, that's true of my cold press, that's true of, the stroke on my baiters. And like I go through and I just oil stuff. I get my coffee, I might light my pipe, and I just go and I oil things. I've got classical music in the background. I mean, just set the scene, buddy. The doors are open, the cows are mooing. I mean, this is a way to be. So you oil the things. My kids are screaming in the yard next to my shop. So I'm lubing everything. Lube your stuff, right? If I'm going to be punching that morning, I'm lubing my punches. I'm checking my punches that they're not bulged at the end. If they are, I immediately, I don't do anything. I dress my punches. Dress them, because if you think I'm lying, go out to your shop right now, heat up 2 billets, punch it mushroomed, and then punch it dressed, and tell me you shouldn't dress your punch. So I dress my punches, and then I have I'll warm up a teaser billet, and I'll warm my punches and get a nice coat of the Fuchs on them before I get to work. Like, think about, right? Methodology. I lay my tools out so I'm not looking for anything. If a die set's in my way, I get it out of my way. Like, I prime the pump before I blow. Okay? That sounded kind of aggressive. So I do all of that. And then I do something that I used to not do.
I do something crazy.
I grab my Allen and I check that all of my gibs are tight. Not only are they lubricated, everything's tight and square. I run my machine. I just make sure everything's running nice and solid. Because the last thing I want to do is realize that something's loose as I'm forging. Right? So proper, what is it? What's the 6 Ps? Proper planning prevents blank poor performance. This is a children's show.
Possibly poor performance?
Sure, possibly.
Possible.
Possum poor performance, right?
Possums.
So I'm not much of a planner, but every morning when I'm getting to work, I get my tools, I dress things, I get everything ready, and then I frickin' send it, bud, right? You check the oil before you go down the mountain.
You are much more in depth about this. I was literally going to say oil, grease, sharp. Like, that's it. Like,
sure.
Make sure you oil what needs oiled, grease what needs greased, and make sure you don't have mushrooms or bulges, and what's supposed to be sharp is supposed to be sharp. And then I'll add on to that. We don't make grinders, but grinder belts are expensive, but they're not as expensive as fighting a grinder belt for 3 hours when you could have just replaced it.
Oh, yeah. With the axes for Best Made, I learned this by stalking Nathan Robertson, the very incredible, talented hammer maker on Facebook. And he documents every single thing that touches his grinder belt. And he documents what brand it is. I mean, I remember a couple years back, he posted this like notebook of all of the specs and where he arrived. And he said, he didn't get the necessary value out of the more expensive. So I have found for the baiters running the surface feet per minute that they are and the pressure that I like to apply, I can get 5 axes out of a $38 24 grit zirconium belt, the green ones. I don't remember the brand. That's the best. That's better than the Cubatron or whatever, the 3M stuff. It's better than the Blaze. It's better than the Norton Blue Fire. Like everything else I've tried. There's zirconium, high pressure. I mean, I've got 5 horsepowers on that baiter there, right? And so I am putting my entire body weight when I'm grinding.
Yeah, you're kind of scary to watch grinding.
When I'm grinding the axes, I can get 5. And if I try to get 6, I'm trying to get 5. If I go to 6, it will take my grinding time from 90 seconds to well over 6 minutes. Mm-hmm. And then the billet's hot, the grind's not as good.
Right.
Because when a grinder belt is sharp, when you're shaping with a grinder like that, when the grinder belt is sharp, I can see a lump in the forging and take the lump off. When it's dull, I can dull the lump, but I can't remove it anymore.
Sure.
And so, yeah. So I just had to come to terms with, and I buy new old stock grinder belts. I don't buy new grinder belts. I go to eBay and I buy, because that $38 belt I can get for $12 in a 100-pack that some guy had laying around his shop. You know, we know what it's like. You buy stuff that you think you're going to use, and then it sits on a shelf, and then you resell it.
Or, you buy stuff that you know you're going to use, and then you make one small adjustment to your product, and then all of a sudden you don't need it anymore.
That's why I have a 15-horsepower, 30-inch stone grinder in my home shop.
That's why we have 500
Shut
swivel
up,
tip
Francis.
Cesters.
We have way more than 500.
I think we only have like 500 left.
I don't want to talk about it.
Anywho, guys, I think that's going to wrap us up. No contest this week. We're going to come back bigger and better than ever with those.
Yeah, we got a big announcement for next week.
We have a big announcement for next week.
Yeah, we do.
What we're going to talk about next week, to tease it, is how do I know when I need a press, a power hammer, or a utility hammer? How do I know which to purchase first?
Well, that's going to be today, but we can't.
That's going to be what we talk about.
We can't
next week. So
producer Evan's cameras are going to turn off.
They're going to overheat. So
I've got the fan on it this week.
Thank you guys for spending time with us.
A lot of time.
Thank
really
you for
appreciate
spending time with Nathan more so than myself. We appreciate you. Check out coaliron.com. Check out School of Iron. Coalschool.com.
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 It's Coal School.
Come get involved. Come take classes. Come buy presses.
Come try out machines.
Come try out machines.
Presses. Power hammers.
Come buy Evan
KAs.
lunch. Come buy Evan lunch.
He deserves it.
He likes the Japanese food.
And God knows I'm not going to do it.
He's fired.
Oh, yeah, I forgot that.
Oh, yeah, I forgot I fired
got
you
fired
yesterday. We bought the donuts and everything.
Yep,
yeah.
we bought the donuts and everything. He got fired. So, all right, guys, that's it. We're done. I'm out. It's dry.
It's dry?
Yeah.
What's that mean?
Have you ever seen the